Grace?
Thank you. Thanks so
Okay,
much,
okay.
guys.
Great. All right.
And feel free to unmute yourself so you can participate. I think Wendy's going to have some question and answers. So
Great. All right, that must be, and Julie is the daughter. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we need, there's Grace. There's Grace. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Hi. And Julie, if you want to unmute. There we go. Okay. Great. Julie, could you scooch over a little bit?
Yep.
Closer to mom? Or closer to your daughter?
This is Grace, and then I'm Julie. I'm the mom.
Okay. Great. We have two Graces. Grace Hansen and Grace Verde?
nice.
Okay. Well, that's easy. Okay. All right, great. Oh, good. We've got Willa back. Willa, can you hear us now? On there, but
I think I had.
we're just waiting to click Willa in. Should I just go ahead? Oh, there's Willa. Hey, Willa.
Can you hear us? Oh, good. You can hear us. Yay.
Yay. Okay, great. Great. Well,
Let me give you a quick introduce. Should I do a quick introduction?
Yes, that would be great.
Somebody has doggies.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought that I could.
Always at the right time.
I always said I would never have yappy little dogs, and guess what I have? Yappy little dogs.
Yes, you do.
You do.
Well, I wanted to thank all of you for your interest, and it's going to be a great informative program for you tonight. We have Wendy Thompson, and she has quite an extensive background in college admissions, including 12 years at Bowdoin College, where she evaluated over 10,000 applications, 20,000 essays, and hundreds of interviews. So she knows what she's doing. She knows what colleges are looking for, and she knows how to give great advice when you're talking about what you need to do to impress a college. So her admissions career spans over 30 years, and last year's program was so good. We're so happy that Wendy came back this year. These are crazy, trying times, and I am very interested to hear how COVID is affecting this, on top of everything you have to think about in trying to get into school. You guys have this extra stress. So, kudos to you for making your plans and getting your information. And Wendy will be able to share a lot of good perspective for us. So thanks, Wendy.
Thank you. And this is really embarrassing, but someone's at my door, and the dogs will start barking if I go to the door. I am so sorry. Hang on one second. It's only to keep the dogs quiet.
That's okay. We'll talk until.
Sorry about that. I'll be right back.
I have cats, so that never happens, although the cat will walk across the middle of the screen. But how are you guys? Are you all from the Berwick area? No?
No.
Okay. Did you read about this in the newspaper or?
Yeah. We're in Wells.
Oh, good.
Next
Good,
door.
good. And what about the Graces?
I'm in Elliott.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
In Berwick.
In Berwick, good. So are you all seniors, juniors?
Okay, now we're good.
Sophomore.
Sophomore, very good.
So I missed that part. Who's what year and where are you from?
I'm Grace. I'm a senior, and I'm from Elliott.
You're from Elliott. Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay, great. And Willa, what year are you?
I'm a sophomore and I'm from Wells.
From Wells. Okay. Elliott. Well, and Julie. Julie is the mom. Grace is the daughter. Right.
Mom. I'm from Berwick, and I'm a junior.
You're a junior. Okay, great. Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. So we've got a sophomore, junior, and a senior. Okay, great. Well, thank you. And to the parents, I have to ask, is this the first time you've gone through the college process with one of your kids? Are they the first?
Yes.
First one?
Yes.
Yes.
Hanson? Okay, first time.
I'm the first, although I teach, so I hear a lot about it from a teacher standpoint rather than from a parent standpoint.
I'm sure, Julie. Where do you teach, Julie?
St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Dover, New Hampshire.
Oh, wonderful. I've worked with a couple students from there. I worked with one student maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, great. Okay, and what do you teach?
Math.
No, bless you. Okay, so you get asked for recommendations on that. So Grace Hansen is a senior. Willa is a junior.
Sophomore.
Sophomore, and Grace is a junior. Okay. All right. Well, I'll make sure I got that right. All right, great. So a little bit, gosh, I'm trying to think of where to start. So none of you have seen brothers or sisters go through the college process, anything like that. This is the first time. So I guess I'll start with you, Grace Hansen. Where are you kind of in the process? Are you starting to, are you working on your list, or are you working on your essays? What's happening there?
So, I've started my college list. I've done some virtual tours, but I'm not going to continue doing the virtual tours because it doesn't, I don't know, it just wasn't the same. It kind of like made me not want to go there just because it seemed like not my campus, but I feel like it would be definitely different in person. So in like 2 weeks, I'm going to go up and just drive around some campuses because they're not doing tours right now. So just going to stay in the car and drive around the campus just to get a better feel of it. And I've done a lot of my information for the Common App. I haven't done my essay yet. And I was actually supposed to take my SAT this weekend, but the test center got closed. So not taking that. But a lot of colleges aren't requiring it. So
yeah. And if you tested just okay on your PSATs, then I wouldn't worry about it. If you tested well and you have another opportunity to take them again, then go ahead and take them. It kind of depends on how you test. I mean, if you don't think they would reflect your grades and be comparable to those, then I wouldn't worry about it. So you probably heard a lot about that. A lot of colleges this year, pretty much most everybody has gone what's called test optional, which means they let you decide whether to submit scores or not. And this happened long before COVID. Bowdoin, where I worked for many years, has been test optional for 30 years or so. So it's more a matter of seeing what their averages are and seeing if you're kind of in the ballpark of those, whether you decide to submit scores or not. A couple of colleges have actually gone test blind, which is very unusual. There are 2 or 3 in the country where they're saying, we're just not going to look at scores at all. I don't care how good they are. Dickinson in Pennsylvania, which I like a lot, and Hampshire, I think. Hampshire? I think so, yeah, has been test blind, but that's pretty unusual. I don't know that we're going to see any more of that. So, yeah. So I guess we'll just kind of go through the group and start with questions that you have and really tailor this to what you're interested in, and we'll move around, and then other things I can just kind of bring up and see if there's interest in hearing about those topics, because we're all at kind of different places. I think though, Grace, it's great that you're going to go do the drive around visits. I think that makes a lot of sense. Where are you going to see?
Me and my friend are going to go see St. Joe's.
Yeah.
I've been to UNH a couple times, so I don't need to go visit that. We might do Bowdoin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then I don't know if I would go. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to, but I want to go see like University of Vermont and Bates maybe.
Yeah. And I would recommend, you're not that far. You're in Elliott.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just pop over and see UNH. Really easy to do.
Yeah.
And actually, I would give the same advice to our other 2 students. Maybe this spring, hopefully things will open up then. But as you're starting the college process, starting to think about this, visit colleges really for type, as I say. You're going to find that University of Vermont and University of New Hampshire are much more alike than University of Vermont and Bowdoin are. So all you're trying to do in those earlier years is get a feel for what's comfortable to you. And that's really, I think, one of the first decisions to make. Rarely in the end, when students are trying to make their final choice, do they choose between, say, a small liberal arts college and a big state university. You just don't see that. I had that happen actually once in 200 students that I've worked with, where she was decided between, she was decided between Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, which is like 2,200 students, and Northeastern University, which are really different places. But the thing to do now for our junior and sophomore is to really start, if you can't obviously do the drive around visits now, hopefully by next spring, see some places, but get an idea of what sits right with you, what feels like college to you. Because some students go and, and say, there's no way I could go to big school, and then they visit a big school and they say, you know what, that actually does feel kind of comfortable. So, so even if you have an idea, it's good to, kind of pick an outlier and include that in your visits, So Willa, kind of where are you in the thought process right now?
I've been researching different colleges. Like I've been to UNH before and it seems pretty big to me.
Okay.
And I didn't exactly feel comfortable on the campus.
That's absolutely, yeah, go with that kind of gut instinct.
I've started researching the University of Alaska in Juneau.
Okay, how do you feel about that?
Oh, totally fine. I'm a graduate of the university system there.
Oh, okay.
You graduated from Fairbanks. I graduated from the Fairbanks campus, but
Okay.
I'm totally fine. I mean, I was born there and I've been to Juneau before and I liked it when we went.
Yeah, okay, great.
And then I've started checking out the University of Colorado and the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Penn State.
Penn State, not UPenn.
Not the same.
Okay. So you
Penn State. Yeah.
Penn State, yeah. So you're really comfortable with big colleges then?
Yeah, for the most part.
For now, yeah.
The University of Alaska in Juneau is quite small compared to Anchorage and Fairbanks, but I don't think it should bother me.
Okay. And so Penn State, and what was the other one you mentioned?
The University of Colorado.
Colorado, Boulder, right, which is about maybe 20,000 students or so. And Boulder is a terrific town. I always have interest in that university, yeah. And if you're not sure about size, you maybe starting the process. I can send you. We can get some emails at the end if you'd like. There's a quiz online that gives you an idea. If you kind of take the quiz, it'll give you an idea if larger or smaller, kind of medium size is good for you.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We'd love that link. There was, and I've started researching like the towns that they're in, just getting a feel for what the businesses are like, what the downtown is like.
Great. That's a really, really good idea. And ask those people if you have a chance to even visit any of those towns. I'm a big believer in just going up to random people and say, so what do you think about the students? And in your search for everybody, know that any reason you have for liking or not liking a college is absolutely legitimate. It's your reason. I have a couple funny stories. I had a student a couple of years ago who visited a college and she said, Wendy, there's too many arches. She's like, and that's what she hated. She didn't like all the arches. And we laughed. She said, you said any reason that I had. And I thought, I did say that. Did anybody, before I offend somebody, did anybody go to Skidmore here in New York? Nobody went to Skidmore? Okay, so I won't offend anybody.
Been on the campus.
Yeah. So you kind of, it either grab, that's so funny. Well, his mom, she's like, well, if you're into mismatched 60s modern architecture, you'll absolutely love it. It made my head explode.
What's the college in Dutchess County?
And I have a student who went early decision there a couple of years ago. We'll talk about the different ways to apply. And she said, oh, I just love the campus. And I thought, oh my God, I couldn't stand it, But everybody's different. And I always say that was my journey. I mean, I've already been on that trip. So I don't need to, choose a college. But again, whatever reason you have, kind of, listen to what, you're feeling when you visit places, because I think you really can't go wrong that way. And Grace, your last name is Verde also? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, the other Grace. Okay.
Yeah.
The Grace. And you're I'm sorry, I got thrown by the whole dog thing. You're a sophomore.
Junior.
You're the junior. Okay. Will is a sophomore. Right. Now I've got it right. So, Grace, have you had a chance to even start to think about this, or kind of where are you? I know it's, it's early yet for juniors. No, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. I have on my website, I've got some planning calendars, and there's the link to the website we'll show you at the end. There's a planning calendar for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So a good thing to do is just kind of look at those, and it's by season, what to do in the fall, what to do in the winter, what to do in the spring. So, but I think, just hearing about, as you said, going to see restaurants, going in shops, really get a feel for the area, because you're going to be living there for a couple of years. So I think I'll start kind of pop around a little bit. So Grace Verde, questions, anything at all that you're wondering about right now, or you just kind of, are you excited about it, nervous? Are you hoping that in 2 years we won't have to deal with everything that we're dealing with now? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Mom, any questions about?
Yeah, I think Grace just like even just where to start. I don't
Yeah.
think like even from what does she want to do at college or what
Yeah.
kind of school or like it's all still a very big unknown.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, just make a note to myself. And Sharon, I think maybe, yeah, I might be able to call. I've got lots of resources that I'm happy to give out. And the easiest thing we'll be to do is to email those.
Sure.
Should I email them to you, Sharon? I'm not
Sure.
sure. And could you have email addresses on all these folks, right?
I do.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to email is the planning calendars that I mentioned, and then a college planning resources list, which is literally exactly that. It's a where to start kind of thing. Resources list. In other words, rather than you having to go through 16 different websites, I've got top 6 websites for college searches, that sort of thing. Resources list. And then that size quiz I mentioned about deciding about size, I'll send information on that. And there's also a good article on that. Yeah, that'll be good. I'll send these all to Sharon after we're done. And then Sharon, if you don't mind, yeah, you can shoot these out to folks. That would be
I
great.
can do that.
Yeah, that would be great. One of the resources I use, and you'll see this on here, is what's called National Center for Education Statistics College Navigator. You don't have to remember this, but you can put in all sorts of criteria. And there are 2. There's a College Board one, but this one is actually better. It has more majors. It has bigger size ranges, and you can play with it and tinker with it. And it'll literally just come up with a list of colleges based on many factors that you put in. As far as majors, a lot of students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors get really concerned about, well, I'm not sure what I want to study in college, so I don't want to start. The only students I've ever known who knew what they wanted to be after college are students who wanted to go to med school. I rarely does a student decide, when they're 22, oh, now I want to go to med school. We used to say when I was at Bowdoin, students would say, well, when I was 17, all I wanted to be is 18. So honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. Even for Grace Hanson, unless I have a student right now, actually Dad called me today, and the student wants fashion merchandising. She wants to be like in purchasing or buying. I mean, it's easy to do a search for me because, it's easy to do them anyway, but that's so specific. Like she has a size range, but if you said, I'm not really sure what I want to major in, which is completely fine, but I know I want something in New England of this size, they're basically don't get hung up on major right away, unless I just wouldn't worry a whole lot about it. Also, usually less than somewhere 30 to 40% of your courses are in your major anyway. A lot of students have this idea of your major as, well, it's most of your courses. It's actually not most of your courses. Generally, your college curriculum over the 4 years is going to consist of 30 to 40% major, 30 to 40% in what are called distribution requirements, a little bit from different fields in college, and then the other 30 or so percent of electives, courses that you want to take. Or if you do what's called a minor, which is like a little major, and that would take the place of your electives. So your major courses are not most of the courses you're going to take in college. And as you probably know, there are jobs that are going to exist 10 years from now, 8 years from now that don't exist now. So I think, what I found was, and I found this article about top skills that employers are looking for right now and have been for years, and none of them mention major. They mention, critical thinking skills, communication skills, organizational. I actually learned more, and I think what got me jobs after college, after grad school, because I went right to grad school, was the fact that I had run a lot of organizations in college. Those people skills that I learned honestly served. I'm glad I got a great education, but what I found was when I was talking to employers, they were asking me more about what did you learn outside the classroom? Which is not to say what you learn is inside is, not important, but those, what we used to call soft skills, are what employers are looking for, which cross the lines on majors. I mean, you could have great critical thinking and communication skills and be a chemistry major or a French major. So it's kind of my spiel about major, and just don't worry a whole lot about it, because you've got time and things change, which is completely fine too. My niece, who went to Penn State, by the way, with 40,000 people, from a family that most people went to small colleges. So we were like, and she loved it. She was very happy there. I didn't, for her, it worked. I would have been overwhelmed. She was what's called a biobehavioral health major, which I still don't really know what that is. I think it's like bio and psychology. Anyway, she worked in some sort of, she was in human resources now, which is, there's no undergraduate program in human resources. So I would say, take what you love in college, go see the career planning people, absolutely, don't wait till senior year, but really use those 4 years to kind of explore different areas. So other questions, and Willow, what is your mom's name?
Millie.
You're Millie?
Millie. Yeah,
Millie.
my name's Millie.
Millie. Okay, great. So Millie, any questions that you have as Willis kind of sounds like she's pretty engaged in things right now? Anything that questions that you wanted me to answer or were wondering about? If not, that's fine. I can.
Yeah, we're looking like in the admissions process when it comes to funding college. So scholarships, where to find scholarships, benefits. She's a dependent of a veteran.
Okay.
And all that kind of stuff. And what does that entail?
Yeah, the veteran piece I don't know, but a really good place to start is what's called finaid.org, FINAID.org. It's the government website. What you don't want to do is pay for scholarship information. I used to know the top 5 things that said scholarships, like if they were scam kind of alerts. And one of the things is if you have to pay for information, don't ever pay for information about scholarships. But finaid.org is a really good website. If FAME, the Finance Authority of Maine, is putting on any programs, even virtually, those are really helpful. I would highly recommend, and also the Maine Educational Opportunities Center, MEOC. They do some good workshops. I haven't looked this year to see what they're doing, if they're doing virtual ones or not, but those can be helpful, and they can also answer questions about the financial aid process. Kind of 2 other pieces of advice on that. One is to focus on what eventually will be what we call your likely colleges, what we used to call safeties. If you're a strong student, they're going to be more inclined to give you what's called merit money. In other words, incentives for coming to their school if you're strong for their applicant pool. Sometimes students get hung up on the name of the college or prestige or whatever, and then they say, but I want a merit scholarship. Well, the super selective colleges, and I mean colleges that admit maybe 20% or less, Bowdoin among them, which admits about 8 to 9% of the applicants, they don't have merit scholarships because, to be blunt, they don't have to. They don't need that. They don't need to use merit money or merit academic scholarships as an incentive to enroll. But they offer very good need-based financial aid. So there's basically merit and need-based. So if you are interested in merit scholarships, academic scholarships, really focus in your search on those likely colleges, because those are the ones that are, I can't say this without saying likely again, are more inclined to give you financial aid. If you're strong for their pool, it just kind of makes sense. I have a student right now who is an AB student with maybe 1,200 SATs, which, by the way, I would have been happy to have. And he got almost a full ride at St. Mike's up in Colchester, Vermont. I'm a big fan of St. Mike's. If you're up that way, Grace, you were saying that you might go see UVM, go see St. Mike's. You can easily, they're 15 minutes apart, really give you it's a great way to see small liberal arts and a university of 10,000. But St. Mike's gives some really generous financial aid, merit-based aid if you're a strong student. So again, if you think, okay, well, it's a perfectly fine school, good reputation, all that, but I'm a little stronger than their average student, kind of focus on those schools in the admissions process. The other thing I would recommend, this comes as a surprise sometimes to people, but is to really look at universities in Canada, which if you can hopefully, I don't know, who knows what will happen next year, but I have students at not just McGill in Toronto, which is probably the most well-known, 20,000 students, but the maritime provinces. Up in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, there are some great universities there. I have maybe 4 of American students I've worked with who are going to school up there. Their cost is not quite a third of what it is to go to in the US. And it's just, and some of them they offer both merit and need-based aid on top of that. And it's not just because of the exchange rate, it's because all the universities there are public. So that, the Canadian citizens are heavily taxed funding those universities, but you as Americans get the benefit. One of my favorite places, I've kind of 2 up there that I know the best, University of New Brunswick, Fredericton, which from here, I live in the Wiscasset area, is maybe 6 hours away. It's 4 hours to the border for me. So it's just not that far. You basically, go to the end of Maine and keep going on what's called the Trans-Canada Highway, and about 2 hours you're there. It's a university of about 6,000 or 7,000 students. They offer engineering and business and some of the liberal arts areas, humanities. Their cost is, I think it's 21 all in with, and it would feel like a comparable small, I would say medium-sized private university. The campus is lovely. The town is really nice. It reminds me a lot of Portland or Portsmouth, kind of that feel. It's on a river. But I would look into that. University of New Brunswick, Fredericton. You cannot beat the cost. And the other place I like up there is Mount Allison University, which is about 2 hours east of there, almost before you go over the bridge to Prince Edward Island. Mount Allison is more like a Bowdoin, Colby Bates, that kind of feel. About 2,000 students. I should know how big they are. And the other place there is Acadia University, which is in Nova Scotia, about 3,000 students or so.
I've looked at that college.
Have you heard of Acadia?
Well,
I did all of Nova Scotia when I was a junior as looking at colleges.
Oh, you're good. Oh, great.
They send representatives down into Kingswood, and then so they were there when I was freshman, and so
great.
The juniors and seniors were called to go to like college fair, and Acadia was Acadia was down there.
Oh, great. Yeah, I have a student at Acadia right now. I've got one at Mount Allison who's graduating this year. And I've had several students look at UNB Fredericton. I'm going to also...
We're big fans of looking into Canada. One of my sister's best friends went to Canada out of St. Thomas, actually, years ago.
Yeah, had a good experience.
She loved it. She did a program where they paid her to go between London and I don't know where she was in Canada, but she did 2 years in London and 2 years in Canada.
Wow. That's. Do you remember what university that was at?
No, I can't.
Yeah. No,
I just remember it was a really cool program.
Yeah. Well, the Canadian universities normally do a big fair every year in the Portland area, but they're doing a virtual fair. I just got information about that. So I'll send that information to Sharon also.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll send that, and it's coming up maybe early. I think it's like October 5th, but I'll send all that. So you have that. No, I mean, the cost, you just can't, there's no 2 ways about it. It's just, I don't care how much, unless you get huge merit or need-based awards, just the starting point, it's less expensive to go to school up there. So.
Now, Wendy, can I ask a parent question? My kid's already graduated. And so one of the things my daughter really was interested in, and this is just an observation for you guys to consider too, she wanted a bigger college, she wanted a bigger campus, more city type, and we looked at all of them. And then in the end, there were a couple that were pretty far away, and I couldn't afford to get her home on like holidays or spring breaks and all that. So just as a student, make sure you consider the fact that if you're a homebody, or if it's important for you to be home on holidays and all that, that you will have the funds to do that. So if you're 6 hours away and don't have your car, can you get yourself home? Is it important for you? But think of your personality when you're looking at these things too, because in the end, it did weigh in on her decision to go to a bigger school, but
Yeah.
stay closer where she could drive back and forth. And I think you have to think when you're going into the search and you guys are still in that, not knowing what you want, what kind of school you want, think about what you want as a person, to personality. So is that important to you, or do you don't care and you're going to say bye to the family and I'll see you and send a postcard in 4 years? And
Good point. No, I
keep
appreciate
it in mind,
Yeah,
because it
and
makes a
cost.
difference.
Yeah, and those transportation costs can add up.
Yeah.
Also with size, don't assume that bigger is better and smaller is somehow less. I always tell students, even at a university or college of 1,800, it's not 1,800 people from your neighborhood or from your surrounding area. I had a student say, you're right, because in high school, everybody's all in one building. Obviously, at a school, I mean, if you go visit St. Joe's or Bowdoin, those 2,000 students are scattered all over. So it's a lot of times colleges can feel bigger in a good way, even though I have just had students say, well, my high school is about that size. You can't really compare, it doesn't really work that way. At your high school, there probably aren't 1,800 students from all over the country and all over the world. And with different interests, different backgrounds, all of that. So the size factor, I think, is something to look at more as a comfort. How far do you want to walk to class? Remember, if it's, if you're looking in the city, are you comfortable with being in a city at night by yourself, going to the library, things like that. It seems like simple things, but as Sharon was saying, really know yourself when it comes to that. Let's see, what else? Grace Hanson, questions that you have?
Yeah, so so you said you were going to send that link about the quiz to see if you okay.
About size, yeah.
Okay.
I have a quiz and an article I'll send.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, so this is like more of a personal question. I got a letter in the mail. It's called the I think it's the National Academy of Future Physicians and something. So my mom's grabbing the letter right now, and I applied for the scholarship, or I'm applying for a scholarship for it. But if I don't know if I want it, okay, let me see. It is
First of all, are they charging you any money to send in the application?
Well, if I get the scholarship, no. But if I don't get the scholarship, then I would have to pay for it. But it's a program. It's it's a program. It's the National Academy of Future Physicians. But I don't know if I'm 100% certain that I want to go into the medical field. But even if is this a good idea to I think it's just a day long event where I go, and I don't even know the details exactly. They're very vague about it.
Grace, probably the best thing to do is when Sharon's got my email, so when I send her you'll have my email. It's just pop me an email about it. And I can
okay. All right.
Yeah, because something I might want to look up, because sometimes things like that are more money. They're kind of a gold mine for people who want to, they're money makers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, there's something called, I thought what you were going to ask about. There's something that sounds like National Honor Society, but it's not. And it's one of those, you pay for it and you're in this book and nobody cares.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody cares on the admission side.
I think that's what
that one I don't know about, but just, ask me about that in an email. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? Visits, we talked a little about getting that feel of a type of atmosphere that's important to you. I think that's certainly, really key. Actually, right now, even for Grace Hanson, I think almost really more important than major. Couple of things, but these apply more to seniors.
Wendy?
Yeah.
How do we get a good feel from a university without being able to take the tour?
Yeah.
Because we've been recommended to just go, say to Bowdoin, just park our car, get out with masks on, and just walk around. which you can get a wonderful feel for the environment and what's going
Right.
on in the town and around
Yeah.
the town. But to go into the cafeteria or the gymnasium or the library
Yeah.
or the, a museum, if there's a museum,
Yeah.
how do we?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, about all you can do right now is, I have a visit tips list that I'll send you. I'll send Sharon also. And it has other websites that are not the college's virtual tour. It's Campus Real or you visit. There's a couple other ones. In other words, they're virtual tours done by people who don't work for the college. So I think you'll find some of those helpful.
That
And
would be
honestly,
very helpful.
yeah, I've got a list of those. You can say there's 3 or 4 of them. The other thing, honestly, you may just have to wait till the spring and hope things are better. I hate to say that, but that you're able to actually, go have a meal on campus, by the spring. The other thing you can do, Grace, and I don't know if Bowdoin does this. I used to do it when I worked at Bowdoin, but I have no idea. It's been 8 years since I've been there. You could ask, I have no idea if they'll do this or not, but I used to link students up with current students, and you can ask admissions if they do that. Really, also for Willa and Grace, as you start to think about colleges, if there's a couple that you like, ask them, do you have any students from Maine? Obviously, Bowdoin has students from Maine, and see if they'll put you in touch. And juniors and seniors are great, but they've kind of, to be crass, kind of drunk the Kool-Aid. I mean, they've been there a couple of years, so what I would want to be connected with is, say, a freshman or a sophomore. See if they'll do that. I have no idea. I have the feeling, and I was on a Zoom program with University of Chicago last night, which is super, super selective. They are falling all over themselves to provide this level of service to prospective students this year. Now that's U Chicago, I have no idea if Bowdoin's doing that, but you could certainly ask, can you connect me with a current, maybe sophomore, because the freshmen, it's going to be hard because they're still navigating this whole process in such a crazy time. But you're going to get probably a better sense just because they've been there in a normal year, see if there are any sophomore. And if you have particular interests, if you're a soccer player and say, can you connect me with a female soccer player, from Maine? Maybe they'll do it. I don't know. I was really interested last night when I was on this Chicago Zoom call. And Chicago is basically like an Ivy League university, and they couldn't do enough. They're like, if you want us, I work with a school up in Canada also, and they said, if you want us to do workshops, talk to your students. And I thought, that's impressive. Because they're kind of stuck too. I mean, they're in a year where, they're relying on students looking at them and applying and trying to, find some workaround solutions, but you can always ask.
And who do you ask, Wendy?
Okay, what you're gonna ask is a great question. On their website, most colleges, I know Bowdoin does this, and most, if not many colleges, in the admissions section will have something called Find Your Counselor or Admissions Rep for my area. I think Bowdoin calls it Find Your Counselor. So in other words, there's going to be a list on many colleges' website of, who has what states as far as reading applications in the past traveling there. So it's, they'll call it different things. If you can't find that information, just call the admissions office. Say, and you could even ask them that, who's in charge of applications or travels to, we used to say, Maine or wherever. Yeah. So yeah, it's usually, I think Bowdoin calls it Find Your Counselor. They make it really easy. It's interesting. I spend a lot of times on colleges' websites, and they vary on how user-friendly they are, but you probably found that also. But yeah, I would ask to be connected, even just, and if you do end up talking to admissions people, ask them. I mean, that's what they're there for too. It's a customer service business, even for the super selective colleges. So don't be afraid to use them.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. I was just looking at my list.
I was an admissions ambassador 20 years ago.
Oh, were you?
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I worked for the admissions department as a college student, and we actually called students on the phone and talked to them.
Yeah.
And then they would link us with students who had similar interests. So I
great.
can only imagine if 20 years ago we were doing that.
Which
Hopefully, I was at Carroll College University outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, Carol, yeah. I used to live in Beaver Dam.
Oh, okay. I was in Waukesha. But yeah, for a while, and then I transferred to the University of Alaska.
Okay,
But
wow.
you should be able to, yeah, I would imagine they've got something, especially with all the technology upgrades
Yeah.
we've had since 20 years ago.
Yeah, and everything that's going on, you know, and in the past, I used to think it was, you know, the colleges that were a little easier to get into that would do that. But honestly, after that Chicago call last night, I'm thinking, you know, even those that have small admit rates are, you know, they've still got to get students for next year.
Well, and even if we didn't list it on our website or list it in our brochures, if somebody asked, we tried to accommodate. So I can definitely tell you, ask, ask, ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that I always say that, remember, you're the prize in all this, you know, that in the end, one college is going to be lucky enough to get you. So as much as, you know, at the beginning of the process, sometimes it feels like, oh, where can I get in? You know, I always say, you're the one that's, you know, driving the bus really in the end, depending on where you get in and making that final choice. And somebody's going to be lucky enough to get you. There's no magic number with the number of colleges to apply to. A lot of times I get asked about that. Students will say, well, how many colleges should I apply to? More important is having what I call a balanced list. What we used to call safeties, I call likely colleges, target, which is admission, you know, could go either way, 50-50, and reach is what it sounds like. So having a couple of colleges in each of those categories is really important. The exact number really depends on your comfort level with risk. And I'll give you a quick story about that. I had a student a couple of years ago from up the coast, and she had 5 likelies and Middlebury on her list. You know, Middlebury with this, you know, 15% admit rate. She had no comfort level with risk. Okay. She's like, I'll apply to one that's hard to get into and the rest that I know I can get into and do well at. So, and she actually went to my graduate school in New Jersey for her undergrad. It's called Drew University, who gave her a huge merit award because she was, again, strong for their pool. But she had several good choices. She got into all of her likelies. She could have compared both merit and need-based financial aid. Most students do like 2 to 4 in each category, but honestly, the number really is a personal choice. The mistake students make sometimes with the reach schools is they'll think, well, the more I apply to, the more I'll get into. And it actually doesn't work like that. I always tell students it's not like buying 5 tickets to one lottery. It's like buying 5 tickets or 1 ticket to 5 different lotteries, you know, if that makes sense, because the applicant pool is not the same. You know, there might be a little bit of overlap, and people who apply to Columbia are probably going to apply to Harvard, but the applicant pools are not, you know, it's not every single student who applies to Columbia is applying to Harvard. So, and their decisions, and even if it was, their decisions are going to be different. So, but make sure you have that, you know, if you're in Boston and you want to see Boston University, go see Emmanuel also. Easier to get into, whole different atmosphere, whole different story there because they're part of what's called a colleges of the Fenway, so there are different opportunities there. But having that mix of universities is really, really important. And knowing where you're going to be most comfortable. I have students that say, you know what, even if I could get into a college with this teeny little admit rate, I'd be more comfortable with a school that's kind of right in the middle of my abilities where I can be a rock star. And kind of knowing your comfort level with challenge, I think, is really important. How comfortable you are with the level of challenge. So kind of keep that in mind, really, all the students, as you're thinking about that. Actually, I kind of did that almost by mistake. Went to a college in Western Pennsylvania, kind of right in the middle of my abilities, but I did well enough there that I got a scholarship to grad school. And if I'd gone to a quote, a harder school, I don't know that I would have gone to grad school. I certainly wouldn't have gotten the scholarship because I wouldn't have done as well. So again, it's really a personal choice, but having that balance of those 3 different categories is really, really, really important. Talked about
so when a college admissions department is looking at their student pool for who to admit as freshmen,
yeah.
What are they looking for?
Great question. Great question. Honestly, number 1 is grades and course choices. They're really at the top of the list. On the College Board website, again, this will be on the resources list I'll send you. It's called Big Future. You can look up any college and they'll say under the applying section, it'll say what's important, and there'll be factors under very important, important, and considered. So those are the 3 categories. Every college is going to put grades in that top category. So, but it's not the only factor, and that's where it gets, the more selective the college, the harder it is to get into, the more other factors will weigh in, like activities, like teacher recommendations, like essays. Why is that? It's because the applicant pool, the people who apply to super selective colleges, are pretty similar academically. Weak students don't apply to Bates. They just don't. Okay. And when I was reading applications at Bowdoin, I was sitting right here in my little sunroom reading applications. I was almost relieved when I got a weak application because it was going to be a fast read, as we said. But so at a school like Bates or Colby, they're not going to have a broad range of students academically. The students who apply are all going to be pretty strong. And so because of that, and they don't have room for all those students, they're going to look a little bit more. They're going to start with grades, but lots of people are going to apply, most 80% of the students who apply are going to look similar on paper. That's when, as the teacher recommendations, essays, activities kind of come into those intangible factors. Other colleges, and I work with students across the spectrum. I work with students who I'm thrilled are getting in anywhere. I'm just as excited about the student who gets into a college that admits almost everybody as I am about a student who gets into one of these super selective places. For me, it's, what's the best match for them? But a college that admits a higher range of students is going to have a broader range of applicants. So college, say, St. Joe's is going to have students who are very strong, students who are, not as strong. It's a broader mix. So they're going to look at grades. They're also going to look at these other factors, but the applicant pool, it's more of a mix as far as grades, if that kind of makes sense. And course choices are really important for juniors and sophomores. If you're thinking about an engineering major, make sure you take at least pre-calculus, if not calculus. Kind of makes sense. So we've got someone, Grace over here, are you thinking about engineering, Grace? Grace Verde, are you thinking about engineering? Yeah.
She has two parents that have engineering degrees, so.
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny. Sometimes coming from me, it's
she's doing engineering, we hope,
So-
she thinks.
okay.
I will be taking calculus next year. Is there a recommendation for what I should take my senior year?
Wow. Are you taking AB or BC? Or are you taking, is it?
AP.
Oh, the
Probably
AP.
AP,
It'll probably be AP.
Yeah, it's an AP card, advanced placement calculus, and there's two levels. There's what's called AB and BC.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what her school offers for
Yeah.
calculus.
Standard is in CP and AP. So.
Yeah, but I don't know which AP it is.
Yeah, there's two different ones.
There's two of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah, so for senior year, if you're taking AB calculus as a junior, then I think you can take BC as a senior. I
Yes,
assume you
yes,
can.
yes.
You would know, because you're the math teacher.
We got a math teacher down here.
Because
Help us a little bit out on this.
The other one I would recommend would be also if you have an opportunity to take statistics. If you're going to engineering, statistics is a great class.
That's a really good advice. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's good advice. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
They're going to want to see a strong STEM background. I mean, I always say think like an admissions officer. If you're, reading a friend's essay for them as a review or thinking about course choices, just put your mind in, think, okay, if I was an admissions officer, how would I look at this? I'm looking at a student who wants engineering and they don't have, anything after Algebra 2. Kind of probably don't want engineering, or they don't realize what that is.
the Algebra 2 class I'm taking is Algebra 2/trigonometry. So they've combined the two classes.
Yeah, you're on the right path, Will.
And then for science, it's just biology. I had a choice of environmental science or biology, and I chose biology.
For this year?
Yeah.
For
I
this year.
get chemistry and physics in too.
Right.
That was my next
chemistry.
point. Thank you. No, that was my next point. Yeah, physics. Both of those you're going to need. Yeah. And
Chemistry and physics.
yeah.
Which was where I was going anyway.
Yeah. So
Extracurriculars or
great question.
last year I was part of the math team, but they're not doing it this year.
yeah.
We did make it to states.
Yeah.
I have a certificate from it.
Great.
Somewhere.
Yeah, that'll all go on what's called your common application.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
all of that will go on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and realizing that colleges are going to be kind of forgiving over the next year as far as they're going to know that. I was just talking to a student the other day, and they can't do choir at their school. Can't do choir because it's really dangerous to sing. Who would have think, we were going to say something like that? And so colleges will get that. If there are other ways to either volunteer online, if there are ways to connect with people virtually, and colleges are using pretty broad definitions. This came up with the U Chicago program last night of what they consider an activity. If you're not doing band this year, but you're staying home and taking care of a sibling or helping out more around the house, or teaching your grandmother computer skills, what they consider an activity has stretched because of what's going on. So I mean, these are human people who care about students, and they're going to understand that. What they want to see is that you've done something. And this year's application, this is for Grace Hansen, they'll actually have on the Common App, which they may continue for next year, who knows, a separate optional question. And it's truly optional. It's not like optional, haha, you should do it. It's literally optional, about COVID, if it's affected, academically or extracurricularly, and how. You don't have to answer, because if it hasn't, it hasn't. But that's something that is on the Common App this year. I would not be surprised if they carry that over another year, but it's too early to say. But yeah, what they're looking for is students who are going to contribute outside the classroom. That's why I want to see what you've done in high school. But more importantly, getting as much out of you can out of your high school experience while you're there. Seems obvious. Quick story, I had a student a couple of years ago who, God, must be a senior in college now. When she was a ninth grader up in Rockland, she asked a friend of hers, she said, what would you do differently if you had high school to do all over again? Her friend was a senior, Lily was a freshman. And her friend said, I would have said yes more often. And I thought, wow, that's, there's a philosophy of life. I think that's pretty wonderful. I said to her, I said, that's your college essay, is saying yes more often. After we talked about it a little, I said, well, what did you do? She said, I decided I wasn't the best soccer player in the world, but I really like soccer. So I was going to go out for the team. And this happened with theater and what else? Oh, student government, a couple different things. Because her friend looked back on those 3 years, her friend said her senior year and said, you know what, I just should have said yes more often, and not let kind of fear of not doing well hold her back. And so that's what colleges want to see. But more important, I don't really believe in strategizing your way into college. My feeling is build that strong foundation in and out of the classroom. High school is going to be a better experience all around, so do it for now. As it turns out, it'll help you when it comes to college, because you'll have something to say, okay, this is what I did in high school. So really do it for the value that you're going to get out of it now as much as anything else. And there's some advice about that on those planning calendars I'm going to send.
I actually have a question about the Common App.
Sure.
So I've done basically most of it, but I don't know exactly where to put, so I'm president of the Interact Club.
Yeah.
Or no, a better example is the National Technical Honor Society. We
Yeah.
don't have meetings or anything. It's kind of just one of those things that you get accepted to, and it's like, good job, you got accepted to it.
Okay.
So when I put it in
there's no description you can write.
Yeah, there's no description,
Fine.
and there's no hours, like weekly hours, but that's required.
No, in that case, Grace, put it under the honors section under education.
Okay.
Okay. Same thing with National Honor Society, unless your National Honor Society group has done a whole bunch of activities. Some
Right.
National Honor Society, it's just like literally an honor, you get into it, okay, fine, but they don't really do anything. And
Right.
some are very active. But yes, the technical one, you'll see in the education, how you have to fill out your education.
Yeah.
You'll see a thing, it'll come up, it'll say, it's either called education or academic. I
Okay.
If you can't find it, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a great question, because there's, like you said, there's no hours, there's no activity. It was
Right.
literally just an honor. Just
Yeah.
stick with that. Just another quick handy tip: when you list your courses, list your more competitive ones this year first. Like if you're having APs, think like an admissions officer.
Okay.
Put your 3 APs at the top and then go down from there.
Okay.
And the same thing, really important with your activities list. Don't put an activity you did once in 9th grade at the top of the list. The ones with leadership or that you've done for a couple of years. Again, think like an admissions officer. When you read the application, you're going to see it's going to be kind of top loaded with your most important things. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So good question. Other questions about that? Anything else? There was something else I had in my mind. So, oh, don't write about cannibalistic hamsters on your essay. Okay, just don't. All right, so that's enough said. So I have all sorts of tips for writing your essay, and honestly, you cannot make this stuff up. You can imagine how many applications I read at Bowdoin. I've told you, someone decided, and my feeling about that when Sharon's heard this story, my feeling about that choice is when a student decides to write about cannibalistic hamsters, what if they ruled out? Like, how is that the good choice? You know, when you've ruled out everything else and you decide to write. Yeah. I always say on your essay, do the roommate test on it. Give it to someone and say, would you want to be this person's roommate? If there's any hesitation, okay, you need another topic. And on my website, there's a list of, the big don't ones. Yeah, the hamster one is really up there. There's one about Japanese fighting fish. I don't know. Unfortunately, there aren't too many, but there are a lot of those. What were they thinking? Oh, I had a student a couple of years ago who complained about his job at the Lobster Pound and complained. And so, yeah, exactly, Grace. That was my reaction. It's like, I do not want to be this person's roommate. Like nobody loves a whiner. And I couldn't get him off the topic, and I really had to let go of it. I finally just thought, you know what? This is not my journey. This is your journey. This is what, and he's graduated from college. He did fine, but it was like, why would you write about that? Because your first summer job, I mean, on at face value, has all sorts of good directions to go in, responsibility and being on your own and dealing with difficult people and all sorts of ways you could approach that besides gripe. It was, not a good choice. But again, think of it as, someone who doesn't know you. Also think, is what I'm writing the most important thing they need to know about me? Because it's your chance to show your personality. I had a student who went to Georgetown School of Foreign Service. Really, really strong student. I don't think she ever gave up. I think she submitted this essay, which shocked me, about how it was about a dilemma that you've solved or a problem that you've encountered. That was the prompt, as we say, or the question she was answering. And she talked about how she convinced her parents to get her out of the booster seat when she was like 8 years old. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to think about you when you're 8, because I, as an admissions officer, when I finish your essay, in my mind, you're going to be an 8-year-old child. Think about it. When I close that application, that's the image I have of you. Yeah, I don't know. Georgetown must have loved it, but yeah. Like I said, the crazy ones are easy to remember. I have a friend at Deering High School who's a guidance counselor there, and she says, imagine if you were in the hall at school and you dropped your essay, it didn't have your name on it, and someone picked it up, and they were walking along and they read that and they said, oh, this is Grace Verde's essay. We know this is hers because it sounds so much like her. Then that's the essay. The essay you wrote was the right one to write. Kind of makes sense. Kind of picture that in your mind. But like I said, and if you happen to look at the website, honestly, it's mostly a lot of free information. I just want to put everything I knew out there. So feel free to dig around on that. And if you have questions that aren't answered, I have a little Ask Wendy section. If you have questions and you say, you ought to have a question out, please let me know, because I'm happy to add that to the list. Optional essays. Some college will say, you can do this essay, but it's optional. Do the essay. Why would you not? It's another opportunity for the college to get to know you. Kind of makes sense. Why would you pass that up? If you're looking at Tulane in New Orleans by any chance, do the essay, because they will reject you if you don't do the optional essay. Don't even get me started. Okay. Just like a whole different conversation. I've actually had a chat with them about it. I said, but your essay's optional. Yeah, well, we make it clear that they should do it. Then call it required, but not my choice. Interviewing, just a quick note about interviewing, and even now, you can do an interview like this with someone online. I do a lot of mock or practice interviews too. Unless you're going to fall asleep, cry, or yawn, and if a college gives you the opportunity to interview, take it. Again, another opportunity for college to get to know you. That information will all be on the website. If it's not, call them, ask them if they do interviews. Middlebury used to just do alumni interviews, local ones. Amherst doesn't interview at all. St. Joe's, would be surprised if they don't, if they would, I was surprised if they would not interview. I suspect that they interview. Every college is different that way. But again, it's your chance to have the college see who you are beyond your grades. It's rarely a bad idea. Now, I did have a student yawn in an interview once.
How do you go about getting an interview?
Every college is different. Just look at their admissions website. It'll be right on there.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, if it doesn't say anything about interviews, they probably don't interview. There should be something that'll say applying. Yeah. And again, you're the concern. If you can't find it, you know, pick up the phone call and say, ask them if they interview. Yeah. Everybody's doing it different. I'm suspecting more colleges will interview virtually this year, but I don't know that. It's rarely a bad idea. But just make sure that you don't ask any questions that you can easily find on the website the answers to. Kind of makes sense. Good. Oh, almost got an hour. Let's see. I say we talked about that. Quick note about test optional. Like I said, if you think the scores are in line with the rest of your academic profile, submit them. And if they're around the college's average, really important to look at the college's average test scores. I've got a lot of data on that, but if it's not on the website, call them. You know, it should be on their website somewhere, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to find. The mistake people make with test optional colleges, this certainly happens, is that this happened a lot when I was in admissions. Students would submit scores because they thought that something was better than nothing. Well, if the average scores of the college are here and your scores are here, mine would have been here, okay? But if you're 100 points off their average or more, don't submit the scores. Just have them look at everything else. Colleges make no assumptions if you don't send in your scores. No one believes me when I say this, but it's absolutely true. And Chicago was the same way last night. They don't have time to speculate. They just focus on your grades, teacher recommendations, essays, activities, all of that. So, but make that decision carefully, because what would happen was when I was reading applications, students would say, well, my scores are high for my school, okay? But it doesn't mean they're high for the college you're applying to. I mean, maybe they are, which is great. Then by all means, send them in. But if they're 100 points off the average, then I'd say just let them focus on everything else. Yeah, a lot of misconceptions around that. Do you have questions about that? Okay. Let's see. Kind of all I've got right now. Anything else on your mind? You guys have been great. Good questions. Yeah. So, oh, you're welcome. Let me see. I'm just going to show Grace Hansen something real quick. Oh, and it's not coming up. Okay. Well, okay. So here's, all right, Sharon, you said I could do a screen share. Okay. Can you see that where it says Wendy? Okay. All right. And you'll have all that. My contact information and the website, it'll be on. I'm going to, like I said, send some documents, send some information to Sharon. And so I'm going to send the sophomore, junior, and senior planning calendars, the resources list, which is the websites I like a lot, the whole thing with size, and the virtual fair in Canada and visit tips. Okay.
And throw in a couple of financial aid resources too.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, definitely.
If anyone doesn't hear from us, what do you think tomorrow, Wendy, you'll be able to pull that together?
Oh, I'll do it after we're done tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you don't hear from me by the end of the day tomorrow, send me an email.
Okay.
And my email address is skelly, K-E-L-L-Y. S is in Sharon, Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y at berwickpubliclibrary.org. I think I have all your emails, but for whatever reason, if you don't hear from me, send me an email and I'll get that out to you.
So I'll forward all this to you.
Great.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, thanks, everybody. I always learn something every time you come, and I don't even have kids in college anymore, but.
Well, I appreciate your good questions and your interest, and everybody's patience, because I know we're at different places in the process, but I think hopefully it's helpful for everybody to hear kind of what's going on. If you do have any questions, give me a yell. I'll send those resources off, and
Great.
good luck, everybody. And again, remember, you're the prize in all this, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Hey,